Hi everyone, welcome to the 102 Hours YouTube channel. Tonight we're going to talk about the story of the Black Dahlia, the mystery of the Dark Lady. In the hush of a Los Angeles night, the fog curls low across cracked asphalt and shadows cling to every corner, as if the city itself is holding its breath before revealing a secret. You probably won't survive this. In January 1947, under the haze of dim street lamps on West Adams Boulevard, a discovery would send shockwaves through every newsroom and criminal bureau from here to Washington, D.C. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments so I know who's tuning in across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The case of Elizabeth Short, the 22-year-old aspiring actress posthumously dubbed the Black Dahlia, unfolds in a second-person present tense narrative. Are you ready? Let's begin. Your first step carries you past a crooked fence, your shoes crunching over broken shards of masonry. The street lamps flicker above, illuminating drifting wisps of fog that snake around stray tires and weathered mailboxes. By 1947, the Henry fingerprint classification system had become the standard for police departments across the country, underpinning every homicide inquiry. Here, though, no clear prints cling to the cold metal. The scent of damp earth and gasoline mingles in the air, and distant traffic hums like an indifferent lullaby. A loose plank swings on rusted hinges, hinting at forgotten stories. You pause to steady your breath, the cool night air pressing against your lungs. Nothing feels right. Further ahead, a tangle of overgrown weeds brushes your ankles as you step toward the lot's center. Some whispered that Elizabeth Short owned a silver locket inscribed with coded initials, linking her to a mysterious admirer, an object never found at the scene. The paler glow of a single bulb reveals scrapings along a low wall, as though someone tried to erase more than just dirt. Overhead, a loose wire crackles faintly, and you sense the weight of unseen eyes watching from darkened windows. Brackish air clings to your skin. A sudden chill skitters down your spine, and you rub your arms, seeking warmth and something to hold on to, as you approach a battered telephone booth, its cracked glass reflecting your own pale face. You notice the ground beyond is unnaturally still. Investigators still question whether the body's precise bisected positioning was meant as a signature or merely the work of an opportunistic killer. The wind pauses, as if considerate of the dead, and the silence deepens. Your pulse thuds in. Your ears, a loose strand of hair floats past your cheek, and you lift a trembling hand. The hush feels deliberate, like the pause before a scream. You inhale slowly, counting silently to 4, forcing a momentary truce between your mind and the dread that threatens to consume you. A distant siren wails, its keening cry slicing through the stillness. Torchlight flickers at the perimeter as officers stand guard, dark silhouettes against the concrete battleground. The air tastes faintly of engine oil and old sweat, and you can almost hear the echo of footsteps that passed here before. Nearby, a battered sedan idles with its engine ticking down, reluctant to abandon its vigil. The dull glow of the dashboard gauges casts jittery shadows inside. You slip closer, drawn by morbid curiosity, then step back as the world tilts. Single wayward drop of condensation plinks onto the pavement. You blink, shaken, and blink again to your left. A row of neat bungalows lies silent, their windows dark except for one faint light that pulses like a heartbeat. Post-war Los Angeles was booming, the population surging past 1.5 million souls. In the late 1940s, yet, behind the glamour of Hollywood, neighborhoods like West Adams housed stories nobody wanted to tell. Here, prosperity's promise met poverty's shadow. Overhead power lines hum gently, a reminder of the world continuing on despite this tableau of violence. A rusted stop sign leans at an odd angle. You step between cracked yellow lines, the paint flaking under your weight. A breeze tousles a strand of hair as if brushing away the past. Swinging your gaze toward the center of the lot, you notice a mounded tarp tucked under a splintered wooden crate. Officers keep their distance, whispering into handheld radios with tense urgency. You can almost taste their fear as they debate approach distances and chain of custody protocols that have evolved since the early days of homicide work. Every shadow seems to pulse with expectation. You lean forward, compelled to peer beneath the fabric, only to recoil as if stung. A raven caws overhead, and you startle, heart hammering. There's no comfort in its cry. Once more, you draw in, a shaky breath, willing your limbs to obey. Behind you, the roar of traffic on nearby Jefferson Boulevard feels distant, like a dream you can't quite recall. The city hums at the edge of perception, unperturbed by what lies hidden here. A flicker of neon from a passing billboard paints the lot in sickly hues of red and blue. Your shadow stretches long and warped across crumbling concrete. In the hush that follows, you catch a whisper of movement like fabric brushing against flechette. Nothing stirs. The still air settles on your shoulders like a lead cloak. You press the heel of your hand to your chest, feeling the thunder of your own. Blood against bone. Stepping back toward the street, you realize this place will never forget what happened here. Every crack and loose brick seems complicit in keeping the secret. Moonlight glints off discarded cigarette butts and shattered glass, as if the very earth has been marked. Somewhere beyond the fence, a dog howls, a mournful salute to the nights. Unsolved horror. You inch backward, the circumference of that silent lot shrinking around you until the edge of the street feels like safety. Then, with one last lingering glance, you turn away into darkness, wondering what shadows still linger in the place where the black Dahlia's final breaths once mingled with the night air. You settle into your chair and drift back in time to January 1924, when a crisp winter chill still clung to Boston's cobblestone streets. Here, in a modest two-story home on Chestnut Street, a newborn Elizabeth Short takes her first breath under the soft glow of a kerosene lamp. You imagine the walls papered in faded floral prints, the hush punctuated by the murmur of a midwife, and the faint hiss of an old radiator. This was the world she knew before Hollywood's bright lights ever tempted her. The smell of boiled potatoes and beef stew drifted from the kitchen, and through the window you can almost hear children's laughter, echoing off brick buildings, yet you also sense a certain restlessness in her mother's gaze as she whispered, "Hopes for a better life." By the time you're old enough to notice, you find yourself at the Boston Public Library, thumbing through film magazines borrowed from a neighbor's shopper, pastime shared by aspiring actresses across America. In the 1920s, the LAPD opened one of the first municipal forensic labs in the United States, pioneering fingerprint and ballistics work that would shape every major homicide inquiry for decades to come. You note how distant that seems from a young girl scribbling movie star beside her name in a battered notebook. The chemistry between true crime's rise and Hollywood's golden age is undeniable. Both thrived on dreams, drama, and a hunger for the sensational. You follow her as she grows, ankles brushing the edge of a worn wooden porch, a doll tucked under one arm while her brother kicks a battered tin can nearby. There's a rumor, one of many, that swirl like autumn leaves, claiming Elizabeth began calling herself the Dark Lady after encountering a fortune teller at Copley Square. Some say the woman gave her a small obsidian amulet to protect her from Hollywood's shadows. That talisman reportedly vanished years later, leaving only whispered questions in its wake. Investigators still question whether that fringe persona ever extended beyond whispered gossip into actual behavior. But you sense its lore in every late night letter she penned to aspiring directors. You drift with her to 1930s California, the scene shifting seamlessly. Palm trees sway under a pink sky, and you inhale smells of citrus blossoms mingled with car exhaust. She's 16 now, slender figure draped in thrifted dresses, and you watch her practice a shy smile in a storefront window. The world of travel was opening up. Transcontinental rail tickets cost roughly $70, a modest fortune. Yet she scraped together enough to board the train for Los Angeles, fueled by Hollywood lore and postcards depicting Technicolor dreams. A slice of irony tickles your mind. The same city that cultivated cinematic fantasies would soon become the backdrop for her darkest hour. Sensory detail washes over you as you imagine dusty backlots and rattling streetcars in downtown LA. Almost hear the clack of typewriter keys as she types cover letters to studios that rarely replied. In the 40s, pulp true crime magazines sold millions of copies each month, feeding a public appetite for murder and mystery, but she chased a starring role instead. You catch glimpses of her in small restaurants, waiting tables in exchange for a discounted room, and you lean forward as a waiter recounts her soft laughter echoing through empty hallways. It feels intimate, a secret shared between you and the night. A subtle shift occurs. You see her in a dance studio, the floor scuffed by countless tap shoes and the air scented faintly of rosin. She practices grace notes in front of a cracked mirror. A dance instructor your presence can't be ignored, remembers her as polite but fiercely determined. Yet beneath that determination lay something more elusive, a whispered belief that adopting darker edge and alter ego would set her apart. She clipped her hair into a sleek bob and began wearing a single black glove to auditions, as if channeling some shadowy starlet from a noir film. That glove became her signature, though it never made it onto a movie set. Fringe enthusiasts claim it survives somewhere in an LA antique shop, but no one has produced it yet. A breath of rehearsal music drifts by and you pause, the cadence gentle against your eardrums. You wonder if her efforts echoed those of countless hopefuls, or if there was something uniquely haunting in her gazer yearning that realism alone could never satisfy. You almost ask yourself, was it ambition, rebellion, or something deeper, a pact with fate whispered under neon signs? Yet the facts remain simple. She arrived in LA at age 18, registering briefly at Hollywood's infamous Florence Crichton home, a shelter for unwed mothers, though no records confirm she stayed long. That ambiguity became part of her mystique, that unspoken question hanging like a specter in the Californian breeze. A gentle murmur of traffic from Sunset Boulevard fades in, reminding you of the city's pulse. For a moment you taste the salty tang of ocean air, though you're blocks from the Pacific. In those few years, she scarcely landed paid film work, but she did cultivate friendships with local drifters and musicians, sharing dreams in back alley bars where neon lights cast crooked shadows on cracked tile floors. You strain to catch the lyrics of a jazz trio, in the distance a soft trumpet, note punctuating an empty pause as if echoing that 15-year-old's first steps toward something unknowable. Then you're back on that Boston porch, the cycle complete and circular, yet charged with possibility. You can almost feel the cold porcelain of her childhood teacup, hear the scratch of pen on stationery as she scribbles "Dear Producer." Late one night, you sense her excitement, tinged with a quiet desperation that the coastal winds would soon carry away. A lone car horn stabs the air, a reminder that behind every personal narrative lies a world in motion. Unconcerned with individual hopes, you inhale slowly, the soft rhythm of your own breath grounding you. A brief pause offers a gentle reprieve, a moment to reflect on the contrast between a small-town girl's innocent optimism and the cunning ambition required to navigate Hollywood's labyrinth. In that pause, you consider the rumors that she once attended a secret midnight screening of German expressionist films, or that she traded dreams with a studio guard in exchange for gossip. These quirky details swirl like dust motes in a sunbeam, illuminating corners that dry facts often leave dark. Your heartbeat steadies as you lean back, ready to follow her next steps into whispers of fame, fortune, and the unknown. The sun is just peeking above palm trees, painting the sky in gold, fresh start for some. But for Elizabeth Short, it marked the dawn of a journey that would end in darkness. You exhale, bracing yourself for the next scene. You trudge alongside uniformed officers across the damp earth, the morning sun still a faint promise beyond low-hanging clouds. Your boots sink into soft mud, and a dull drum of footsteps echoes through the vacant lot. By 1947, LAPD detectives were still refining crime scene photography practices introduced decades earlier. Yet here, the lenses tremble with uncertainty. You breathe in the scent of oil and damp gasoline, taste the temps of metal in the air, and sense that nothing in this world will ever feel normal again. Ahead, an unmarked tarp flaps over something unnatural. You approach with measured steps, the hush of dawn broken only by clipped radio chatter. A single beam of torchlight catches a pale hand extending beyond the fabric's edge. An icy prickle creeps down your spine as you remember that mainstream forensic technique of the Dayblood group. Serology could only tell investigators whether a sample was human, not its exact origin. They're armed with cameras and chalk, not the DNA kits of tomorrow. With deliberate calm, you kneel. The tarp pulls back to reveal Elizabeth Short's body, bisected at the waist with cold precision. You feel the weight of countless eyes on your shoulders, officers struggling to reconcile the grotesque sight with professional detachment. A fringe rumor circulates that the killer marked the wound with a miniature mandala of chalk, an occult signature, meant to summon darker truths into daylight. Investigators still question whether this was ritual or the idiosyncratic flourish of a disturbed mind. Your fingertips brush against cracked pavement, scattered with broken glass and cigarette butts, a makeshift memorial to fleeting lives. Study the body's positioning, legs neatly pointed east, arms symmetrically splayed. Some suggest the killer may have operated under the influence of German expressionist film imagery, stalking his victim like a distorted shadow on screen. Another fringe whisper claims he used surgical tools borrowed from a local clinic, lured by the law of anatomical precision. None of it can mask the cold void in your chest. A camera clicks, and the world seems to stutter. In the distance, a patrol car idles, exhaust fumes curling into the grey morning sky. You inhale slowly, the motor oil and damp earth mingling in your nostrils. The routine of processing a crime, scene dusting for prints, bagging evidence feels absurd in the face of such severity. You watch as an officer lifts a small vial of blood from the pavement, labeling it with neat handwriting. Breathing is optional in moments like this. Every inhale reminds you of life's fragile thread. A uniformed photographer kneels beside you and murmurs. You see that slash along her thigh. You nod, though you'd rather look away. The cut is shallow, almost absent of blood dried around. Its edge. Some toxicologists later speculated the killer used a bleach solution to clean the wound, but the record remains murky. Investigators still question whether contaminants in the sample led to misleading lab results or if the bleach was merely a practical attempt to erase evidence. You rise, the earth giving way beneath your feet. The wind sighs through skeletal branches along the lot's perimeter. Somewhere beyond, an early edition of a true crime radio broadcast crackles. Tales of murder echoing through living rooms nationwide. The popularity of shows like Dragnet had trained listeners to crave cold. Hard facts and here. The cold, hard fact is that a young woman's life has been stolen and carved into two separate halves. The officers hold a brief, hushed conference at the lot's edge. You drift closer, careful to keep your shoes out of the fresh bloodstains. They debate the possibility of a second body part being taken as a grotesque trophy. A fleeting thought crosses your mind. Whoever orchestrated this knew exactly how to shock the system. A fringe hypothesis suggests the killer intended this as a message to the burgeoning tabloid press, daring them to out-sensationalize his crime. The absurdity of it lingers like an unpleasant aftertaste. You crouch before a discarded magazine, cover emblazoned with a stylized Dahlia ironically cheerful beside the horror before you. The clack of a clipboard punctuates the morning air as a detective jots notes. Time of discovery, estimated time of death, environmental conditions. That Dahlia motif, first coined by a local reporter, now seems to mock you with its simplicity. The body's glossy hair fans across the cold concrete, still tied into a neat bun that only deepens the tragedy. You steady your breath, feeling the ground tremor with distant traffic. A gentle pause follows, as if the earth itself hesitates. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, recalling something mundane, a neighbor's dog barking at dawn, or the rattle of a milkman's cart ordinary. Moments swallowed by this extraordinary Then, with your eyes open, you commit every detail to memory. The curve of a broken fence, the angle of her legs, the way the grey sky pooled above this silent stage. Footsteps crunch behind you. A sergeant offers a soft reprimand. Mind the evidence, keep back. You nod, standing as the breeze tugs at your collar. The street lamps have long since powered down, and dawn's pale light reveals the lot in stark relief. Nothing here is fictional or romantic. This is a crossroads of brutal fact and human obsession. A brackish smell of earth and decay hangs in, the air like a cruel promise. You step back, distancing your senses from the scene. The officers continue their work, voices low, professional. Their faces are lit by determination and exhaustion. As you walk away, imprinting the sight into your mind's archive, you wonder if justice will ever bridge the gap between these two halves of a life. Investigators still question whether the missing pieces will ever be recovered or if the truth will remain forever bisected. You step onto the cracked pavement and feel the residue of flashbulbs fizzing at the back of your mind. The lot lies under the glare of 4 towering street lamps, their yellow halos slicing through the pre-dawn murk. By the late 1940s, crime scene photography with black and white film and numbered evidence markers had become standard practice in major departments across America. Now, under these harsh lights, officers crouch and snap wide-angle shots of every splintered board and dark stain on the ground. Your boots make soft thuds against broken concrete as you drift between uniformed figures in rumpled coats. A detective's cigarette smoke curls around lampposts, the acrid scent mingling with damp earth. You inhale slowly, letting the bitterness settle on your tongue, as if savoring a story you've heard told 1,000 times. In this stillness, you almost hear the click of a bolt disappearing into place near the edge of the lot. 2 officers crouch over a discarded shoe. One holds a small white card stamped Exhibit 12, while the other gently cradles a glass evidence jar containing a faded red tissue. Fringe whispers claim that the tissue once bore a lipstick message, "Dahlia is mine," but no such inscription appears in official reports. Investigators still question whether the killer intended to leave a personal signature or merely discarded trash from an earlier crime. You lean closer, the officer's murmurs pooling in your ears like a distant radio drama. A low breeze rustles the pages of a leather-bound notebook in a nearby assistant's hand. Inside, neatly penned notes record barometric pressure, temperature, even the angle of street lamp shadows. You notice how meticulous they are. By 1947, the LAPD crime lab had formalized procedures for evidence logging, mandating that even a hair strand be documented in triplicate. Yet here, under the watchful guard of patrol cars, everything still feels improvisational, as if the city itself hadn't decided whether to treat this as a scandal or an unsolvable riddle. You slip a few steps to the center and catch sight of a chrome evidence marker perched beside a rusted barrel. It's numbered 14, though you count 13 others scattered across the ground. Beneath one marker lies a rectangular smear of what looks like dried oil. Some say engine grease. Others say something far more sinister. A junior officer speculates aloud that it might be residue from surgical gloves, fueling that fringe theory of an amateur butcher using medical supplies stolen from an ambulance. Investigators still question whether such theories distract from more practical leads. That faint whisper of wind carries a distant siren. Your pulse picks up pace, matching its keening wail. You wonder if that call is for backup, or simply another routine alarm that has nothing to do with you. The lot hums with quiet purpose. One man sweeps loose debris into a dustpan. Another scribbles arrowed sketches in a ledger. Chalk outlines circle the body's former position, and oddly some investigators chose to leave them intact, believing the image itself would help jog memory later. Mainstream adoption of chalk silhouettes began in the mid-1930s as a visual aid, though many departments abandoned it for fear of sensationalism. You pause, breath shallow, absorbing the contradiction. Here is official procedure colliding with human uncertainty. A sergeant at your elbow taps his pencil twice and says, "Mind the glass, kid." Without turning, you tuck your napkin-clad notebook into your coat pocket. Empiricism demands you record everything, but your senses rebel against the sterile veneer of checklists. A stray beam of light falls on a battered camera tripod, its legs splayed like broken fingers. Nearby, a forensic photographer adjusts the aperture, murmuring about contrast and focal length. He quips under his breath dry, almost conversational, "Gotta make sure the press gets their gruesome shot." A hint of sarcasm softens the grim scene as you shift your weight. Behind him, 2 plainclothes detectives discuss the tarp's condition. It's a rumpled burlap sack, soaked through in places. Some claim the killer attempted a crude cleanups, crubbing away blood and hair for dragging the body from an abandoned hallway. Investigators still question whether that theory holds water, or if the stains merely pooled after officers moved the corpse. You approach, eyeing the soaked fibers, and imagine what it would take to erase every trace of violence from these grounds. In a brief lull, you close your eyes and let the nocturnal calm wash over you. A momentary breath offers a gentle reprieve from the whir of cameras and scribble of pens. In that stretch of quiet, you almost believe you could forget the horror that transpired here. But then a distant cough shatters the hush, and you're back in this tableau of methodical chaos. You notice small details: a single blue glove abandoned near the fence, the smear of red lipstick on a fallen matchbook, the way the lampposts glare pools in little rings on the cracked asphalt. Each discovery feels laden with meaning, yet every plausible explanation bends under the weight of rumor. One detective fingers a scrap of paper they found tucked in Short's glove boxer, possible clue to her last movements. Fringe enthusiasts suggest it was once part of a secret collector's card series, but no collector has ever come forward. Investigators still question whether that scrap should have been preserved or discarded. A junior officer motions you closer to examine a cluster of footprints pressed into soft mud by the lot's entrance. They analyze the treads, a solitary pattern of narrow heels surrounded by more substantial shoe prints. You kneel, brushing fingertips against the impression, feeling the slight give under your touch. A subtle scent of vinegar lingers, oddly out of place among gasoline fumes. Some believe the killer carried a bottle to mask the metallic temps of blood on his hands. You inhale that sharp odor and shudder, as if your own blood turned cold above. The lampposts hum softly, their electrical wires humming like a lullaby you can't quite sleep through. You note the moon, a thin sliver overhead, powerless against the human drama unfolding below. On the periphery, a news photographer zips film canisters into a leather pouch, already considering the morning edition's front page spread. That tabloid hunger for gore and scandal felt new in the 1940s, feeding public fascination with unsolved murders and prompting headlines that read more like pulp fiction. You stand, brushing your knees free of grit, and survey the lot one more time. Officers move in choreographed efficiency, cataloging, packaging, sealing. The scene might look tidy in tomorrow's newspaper photo, but you know better. Each artifact here, from splintered wood to stained concrete, carries a fragment of truth. Yet even as you catalog each piece, doubts press in. Did they collect the right samples? Did they miss something crucial under this canopy of light and shadow? Your heart stills at the sight of a lone, unnumbered marker tucked against the fence, a slip of paper pinned there, inscribed simply, "Find me." You stoop to read it, half expecting nothing. The paper is blank. A gust of wind tears it loose, sending it skittering across the pavement. You watch it go, wondering if its emptiness is itself a message. As you retreat toward the perimeter, the first rays of sunlight crest the distant hills. Morning traffic hums to life beyond the lot's confines, indifferent to the silent choreography of death and evidence within. You carry the weight of what you've seen in your bones, even as you prepare to join the ranks of civilians who will pore over tomorrow's headlines, wondering how the pieces fit. Investigators still question whether these early hours of meticulous investigation brought them any closer to the man who left half a life behind. You step into the LA Police Department's dimly lit crime lab, where the metallic scent of photographic developer mingles with the faint tang of solvent. Overhead fluorescents buzz like distant cicadas, and rows of glass jars glint behind dust-speckled windows. Here, lab technicians in crisp white coats crouch over workbenches strewn with brushes, powders, and glass slides. By 1947, the standardized Henry fingerprint classification system, first introduced in Britain in the early 1900s, had become the backbone of every serious homicide inquiry in America, guiding examiners as they compared ridge patterns by hand. Yet even this storied method struggles under the weight of Elizabeth Short's case. Smeared smudges and partial prints cling to evidence envelopes, defying clear identification. You watch as a technician dips a camel hair brush into ebony powder and hovers it over a grimy piece of broken fence rail. The powder drifts through the air in ghostly clouds, settling on ridges and valleys until the print emerges like an apparition. A soft trough of air stirs the loose grains, making the print tremble into near oblivion. A fellow technician leans in, adjusting a magnifying loupe to examine the minutiae. Bifurcation, ridge ending in painstaking detail. It should yield a lead. Instead, the print dissolves under the lens's glare, leaving only a crescent of smudged dust. You inhale sharply, tasting the bittersweet ash of failure. On a nearby counter, a row of blood vials waits for analysis. You recall that around this time, blood group serology could differentiate human blood types A, B, A, B, or O, but couldn't tie a sample to a specific individual. Technicians swirl a pipette of anti-serum into a drop of dried fluid lifted from Short's clothing, watching it agglutinate in delicate clumps. It confirms human origin, nothing more. Investigators still question whether more advanced chemical tests like early enzyme assays might have pointed to a suspect if they'd existed then. A low hum resonates from an old centrifuge as another lab hand extracts bone fragments from a sealed envelope. You lean closer, drawn by a fringe rumor that the fragments weren't Short's at all, but planted to mislead detectives. Some whispered that an occult-obsessed embalmer slipped them into evidence, hoping to cloak the crime in ritual smoke. You glance at the dusty jars, one labeled bone and another hair, and wonder if superstition ever truly loosens its grip on cold science. You drift toward a back alcove where a faded ledger lies open. Its pages are filled with elegant cursive, exhibit numbers, collection dates, and officer initials. Each entry feels like a defeated confession. A pair of gloved fingertips trace the line where Exhibit 47 should have been the knife blade, itself still missing. A crackle of static from a nearby radio reminds you of dragnet broadcasts popularizing forensic minutiae. But even their scripted precision can't remedy human error here. A sigh escapes your lips as you realize how much hinges on that one vanished piece. The smell of warm metal cuts through your reverie. Beneath a heat lamp, glass slides wait for photographic prints of the Dahlia case's key exhibits. The locket believed to belong to Short, scrapings from beneath her fingernails, and a small shard of mirror once found in her glove compartment. A tremor passes through the technician's hand as he secures a slide under the camera's lens. "Got 2 bracket exposures," he mutters, voice low. You nod, though your throat tightens. Each imperfect shot might be the sole record of an ephemeral clue. In a corner, a nervous junior examiner hunches over a makeshift fume hood, mixing reagents to reveal latent blood traces. He drips a few drops of benzidine solution onto a swab of concrete, waiting for the telltale blue stain. When it blooms, he exhales in relief. The stain confirms blood, but the spot's significance remains uncertain. Was it cast off from the killer's boots, or an old stain long forgotten. Investigators still question whether these reactive tests, prone to false positives, diverted attention from more fruitful avenues. You pause for a breath, letting the lab's quiet hum cocoon you. A brief pause offers a gentle reprieve before you step into the next haze of uncertainty. Beside you, a tweed-jacketed detective flips through the lab's procedural manual. Its pages dog-eared at the section on trace evidence. He flicks to a chapter on hair analysis, noting that while microscopic comparison had been used in notorious 1924 cases, its reliability was hotly debated. Yet here, no lab has the time or technology for fiber, luminol, or DNA sequencing tools decades away. A murmur ripples through the room. A report from the morgue. They've tested tissue samples for post-mortem interval, hoping to narrow the window of death. The data arrives as plain numbers, temperature, pH levels, insect activity, but translating them into hours felt more art than science. You lean in, catching the faint click of thermometer dials turning. Something about that click echoes in your chest, a reminder that every cold fact is cloaked in human interpretation. Your fingertips brush a stack of Polaroid crime scene photos, snapped at the lot before the body was moved. The images lie under glass, their colors faded to sepia echoes. You lift the top print. The scene appears starkly voyeuristic, silhouette-like, as if frozen in a noir film still. Fringe enthusiasts argue these photos were doctored, perhaps cropped, to conceal distant witnesses. You turn them over, find no penciled notes, only the lab stamp. Investigators still question whether critical details were lost in the rush to publicize. A sudden scrape of a chair interrupts your thoughts. You look up to see the lead technician weighing out luminol powder, one of the earliest chemiluminescent reagents, discovered just a few years prior. He murmurs, "Let's see if this old trick picks up anything new." You watch droplets of solution sizzle against concrete, then glow faintly in a corner. It reveals a smeared trail running toward a fence post. For a fleeting moment, you imagine catching the killer's fleeting shadow, though the glow quickly fades to nothing. A single wayward grain of light swallowed by darkness. You step back, feeling the lab's gravity pull at your bones. The swirl of powders, the hum of centrifuges, the flicker of lights, each instrument promising revelation yet delivering uncertainty. The weight of so many almost leads settles on your shoulders like wet cement. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, and taste the faint sweetness of photographic fixer mingled with old sweat. Before you leave, you pause at a small blackboard listing unresolved questions. Time of death, motive, identity. Beneath each, a scrawled question mark, underscore. You run your gloved hand along the ledge, collecting a fine dust. It drifts through the air like memory particles, fragile, elusive. Investigators still question whether the limits of 1947 doomed this case from the start, or if human misstep was the fatal flaw. You step away from the benches and toward the lab's exit. The doors squeak, echoing behind you. Outside, the world waits oblivious to the quiet battles fought here. For a moment, you linger in the doorway, letting the lab's shadows recede. Then, with a final breath, you turn back to that silent lot where history's most infamous dark lady case began and realize the fight for truth is far from over. You slip into the cavernous press room of the Los Angeles Examiner, where the air trembles with the hiss of teletype machines and the clack of typewriters. The walls are plastered with yellowed clippings, each emblazoned with Black Dahlia in bold, sensational typeface. By 1947, major metropolitan dailies, routinely devoted entire front pages to grisly homicides, chasing readership with lurid headlines and dramatic illustrations. Tonight, you feel the glare of half a dozen press cameras trained on the city's most infamous murder, as reporters jockey for the juiciest exclusive. The collective hum of conversations swells, punctuated by the sharp tap of a telegraph key announcing the latest tip. A newsboy hawks freshly printed broadsheets on the sidewalk. Outside, Dahlia bloodbath shocker and split body mystery deepens. You snatch one and inhale the acrid scent of fresh ink mingled with rain-damp concrete. Sensational rackets like these sold hundreds of thousands of papers daily, fueling a post-war appetite for crime stories that eclipsed even sports pages. You trace your fingertip along a photograph of Elizabeth Shorter, grainy, studio headshot that flirts with glamour rather than capturing her actual features. And you feel a pang of dissonance between the smiling face and the horror it now represents. Inside the bullpen is electric. Reporters lean over desks crammed with notebooks, cigarette butts, and half-empty coffee cups. A harried city editor barks, "Get me more on that Danbury hitchhiker lead." Voices overlap. A copy boy calls for more wire copy. A rewrite man argues about punctuation. You taste the bitterness of burnt coffee as you sidle up to a news desk. A young reporter slides you a folder stamped confidential, its corners frayed from constant handling. She whispers that someone spotted a Dahlia look-alike at a West Side nightclub an alluring fringe rumor suggesting Elizabeth cultivated a secret nightlife persona, slipping into smoky jazz clubs in a sleek sequined gown. Investigators still question whether these nightclub sightings were misidentifications or deliberate fabrications to keep the story alive. You stand beneath a flickering fluorescent tube, the harsh light casting stark shadows across your face. The copy desk. Chief shoves a stack of photographs into your hands, shots of the crime scene, close-ups of evidence markers, police mugshots of early suspects. He grumbles about press leaks and loose lips at headquarters that have let details slip before official reports. That tension between spoon-feeding the public and safeguarding the investigation illustrates a delicate dance. Too much secrecy breeds rumor. Too much openness risks contaminating the case. Leaning back in your swivel chair, you survey the clamor, chalkboards listing deadlines, bulletin boards pinned with tips and cryptic letters, and a battered Western Electric phone that rings incessantly. You lift the receiver and hear a hushed voice claiming knowledge of a Hollywood doctor who performed clandestine surgeries, a fringe thrill implying Elizabeth's wounds were self-inflicted or surgically altered. You jot the name down, mindful of journalistic ethics that demand verification from at least 2 independent sources before publication. Yet editors would leap at any hint of scandal, even as fact-checkers scramble to separate reportage from rumor. A deadline whistle blows, and the room erupts into controlled chaos. Reporters dash to teletypes, huddled in corners banging out 200-word leads. You press your lips together as you begin crafting a story. You describe the graphic, bisected body with careful restraint, mindful of city ordinances against obscene content, yet eager to capture readers' morbid fascination. You slip in a mainstream fact. New guidelines from the American Press Institute encourage sober, factual reporting over sensational hyperbole, but your copy bristles with dramatized verbs, shattered, spectacular, haunting. Once your draft is sent, you retreat to a breather moment. You sink into a threadbare armchair by a frosted window and lean your head back against chipped plaster. Outside, a street lamp spills a pool of yellow light onto wet pavement, the faint purr of Goodyear factory machinery in the distance, a reminder that life persists beyond the headlines. You close your eyes against the fluorescent glare, tasting the acrid aftertaste of smoke and ink. A soft hum of late-night radio bleeds in from a nearby console. Another true crime program recounts lesser-known California murders in hushed, urgent tones, each story feeding the public's ever-hungry appetite for darkness. But the sensation of cold metal under your fingernails drags you back to the newsroom. You rise and wander toward a side office where the city editor consults. A rumpled journal filled with anonymous tips. He mumbles about postal regulations and the flood of letters addressed to Black Dahlia Avenger, each claiming responsibility and offering cryptic clues. Fringe enthusiasts have pored over these missives, assembling elaborate ciphers and occult symbols extracted from faded stationery. Investigators still question whether any of these letters came from the killer, or if they were the handiwork of attention seekers batting in the gutter of human vanity. You rest your hand on a filing cabinet, its drawers stuffed with press releases and police reports. A memo from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department warns journalists against printing unverified confessions. They inadvertently publish a false lead. Yet the lure of a confession on page 1 can eclipse the dry reality of procedural nuance. You wonder if that tension ultimately hindered the investigation more than it helped. In a corridor lined with dark wood panels, you pause outside a soundproofed broadcast room where a radio announcer's voice booms. Tonight, on Murder on the Air, we reveal startling new details in the Black Dahlia case. You can almost hear listeners clutching their radios with white-knuckled anticipation. Radio dramas and pulp magazines were cultural staples in the 40s, heightening communal fear and fascination with murder. The ripple effect of audio sensationalism fed back into print media, each medium amplifying the other's reach. You drift back to the copy desk, where the editor slides your finalized story onto a press gang trolley bound for the linotype machines. The clatter of molten lead hisses behind a narrow window type bars, dropping into place, words cast in hot metal. You exhale, your breath visible in the cool, unheated space. For a moment, you savor the tactile reality of journalism as a craft and the intoxicating power you wield to shape public perception of the crime. A photographer appears beside you, camera slung over his shoulder, eyes bright beneath a brim. He asks if you'd like a fresh hero shot of the Dahlia's empty lot under moonlight. You gesturally decline as politely as you can. Ethical codes frown on staging crime scene photos for promotional effect. Yet fringe gossip insists some outlets secretly orchestrated night scene reenactments to heighten drama. Investigators still question whether such staged images misled witnesses or contaminated evidence. You gather your belongings a fountain, pen, notebook, and cigarette case and move toward the newsroom exit. The press room's din recedes behind you, replaced by the steady thrum of the city at night. Overhead, neon signs flicker promises of speakeasies and late-night diners, oblivious to the tragedy that propelled a small-town girl's name into headlines. You tuck your folder under your arm, feeling its weight like a millstone of obligation, to report, to inform, and ultimately to remember. Outside, rain begins to patter, scattering droplets that glint in the neon glow. You pause beneath the examiner's marquee, letting the water drip from your hat's brim. The world beyond feels distant, yet you know tomorrow every newsstand will bear the Black Dahlia's story in glossy, provocative detail. You turn away, the echoes of teletype and radio chatter lingering in your mind like a ghostly refrain. Somewhere, out there, the public awaits each new revelation, hungry for the next shadowed whisper in a story that refuses to die. You step into the cool hush of Parker Center's interrogation wing, the air heavy with the faint tank of disinfectant, stale cigar smoke. Fluorescent bulbs overhead hum in low resonance, their light pooling in angular zones on the linoleum floor. By the late 1940s, the Reed interrogation method, pioneered by psychologist John E. Reed, was beginning to influence police across America, emphasizing psychological pressure over brute force. Here, though, detectives still rely on pointed questions and weary persistence, scribbling notes by hand as suspects shift in hard-backed chairs. Investigators still question whether any of them truly fit the profile. You follow a detective down a corridor lined with metal-grated windows, the scent of old coffee drifting faintly from a nearby break room. A glass-paneled door clicks open, revealing a lanky drifter in threadbare overalls perched on a steel stool. His eyes flicker between you and the two officers flanking him. One detective offers a brisk nod and begins. "Where were you on the night of January 14th? You lean against the cool tile wall, toes tapping in time with your own heart, and watch the man's lips tremble as he recounts bombing rides on trucks bound for San Diego. He says he never heard of Elizabeth Short, though a fringe rumor claimed. He once bragged in a bar about giving a woman a ride to a West Adams party, no name attached." You sense the discomfort in his voice, yet nothing concrete emerges. A breather moment passes. You close your eyes briefly, tasting the acrid bite of old duct tape on the room's single window seal. Next, you're ushered into a second room, where a hulking haul-away driver looms behind smeared glass. His broad shoulders fill the frame, and you notice a faint stain on his mechanic's jacket like dried motor oil, though some whispered it was blood. You hear the detective quietly reference the man's criminal record: petty theft, vagrancy, a brief stint in San Quentin for illegal possession. The suspect's knuckles whiten as he grips the edge of the table. You watch every twitch of his jaw, every swallow that echoes in the silence. He insists he hauled junk from that lot the morning after the body was found, unaware anyone lay beneath. He describes the scene with unnerving calm, citing the crispness of the January air and the distant rumble of street. Still, his alibi rests solely on the honor system, no time-stamped receipts, no corroborating witnesses. Behind the one-way glass, you glimpse a pale fluorescent glow on a clipboard topped with scribbled headlines. Dahlia, look-alike, spotted. Doctor's secret visits. The detective leans in, voice low. "We found your boot print near the fence." The driver's gaze drops and he shakes his head. He claims he cleaned his boots days later, unaware that early photogrammetry techniques could later match tread patterns. Mainstream science, first used by the FBI in 1936 to link suspects to weapons. Yet here, that science still feels nascent, vulnerable to contamination and human error. You catch a sliver of movement as a court-appointed stenographer glances at you. Her typewriter keys clacked softly, transcribing every hesitant syllable. The driver's narrative is calm, almost rehearsed. You swallow, mindful of the slight metallic taste at the back of your throat, the echo of too much coffee and adrenaline. A breath comes in shallow, then deeper, offering a brief reprieve from the tension that coils around your ribs. The detective thanks him for his time, and you watch the man rise, his bulky frame hunching under scrutiny as he trudges back down the corridor. Outside, the hallway remains silent except for the distant drip of a leaky faucet. You lean against the wall, tracing the chipped paint with your fingertip. A nurse wheels a cart of autopsy slides past, and you inhale the faint coppery scent of blood under glass. You shift your gaze to a third suspect, a lanky ex-soldier with haunted eyes, seated alone in the last interrogation room. He's clutching a battered journal pages filled with scraps of poetry and mentions of a dark lady's gaze. Detectives suspect he followed short at night, drawn by the same cinematic allure that had fueled her Hollywood dreams. Fringe theorists even claimed his neat penmanship contained hidden ciphers, mapping her final steps. You swallow again, tasting dust. The detective places a single photo of the body on the table. Its edges are curled, the image itself blurred at the torso. He closes the distance and asks, "Do you recognize this?" The ex-soldier's hands tremble. He gestures toward the page in his journal where he'd sketched a face with hollow eyes and a split torso. His theory, that he witnessed the crime from an alley but fled in terror before saving her. You feel the weight of his confession hang in the stale air. A breather emerges as you deliberate the leap from poetic scribbles to confessed wit. No charges are filed. No corroborating footprints. No fingerprints. You exit the last room onto a landing where the sharp scent of ammonia wafts from a janitor's closet. A lieutenant crosses his arms, offering you a measured nod. "Those are our main three," he says. His tone is neither hopeful nor defeated, just pragmatic. He hands you a folder of mugshots, each face angular, each gaze resistant. You flip through them, noting the slight variations in portrait style, the tilt of a hat, the crease of a collar. Early true crime pamphlets in the 30s popularized such collections, distributing photos to trained citizens as eyes of the city, but no public contest nailed a culprit here. Investigators still question whether any of these men were vessels for a deeper truth or mere distractions from it. The corridor light flickers as you head for the exit, and you rub your temples, feeling the faint pulse behind your eyes. Outside, the Los Angeles sun has climbed higher, its stark brightness dissolving shadowed corners. You lean against a parked squad car, listening to its engine tick down. The distant thrum of traffic resumes its indifferent lullaby. You close your eyes and recite the suspects' names like a litany of them solid, all of them haunted. A whisper of wind carries the scent of smog and jasmine from nearby gardens. In that moment, you realize the puzzle remains fractured. Each lead had promise, yet none coalesced into certainty. The drifter's alibi, the driver's calm denial, the soldier's poetic tremor, they all fit pieces of an unfinished mosaic. You inhale deeply, letting the city's chaos wash over. It's a gentle reminder that life beyond these walls marches on, indifferent to this small wing of interrogation rooms. You slip your hand into your pocket and close the folder, the weight of it grounding you. As you walk away, footsteps echoing in the hallway. You feel the case's gravity settle like dusk over concrete. You can almost hear the faint echo of film, reels clacking in distant projection rooms, each frame preserving a moment of potential truth. And you carry with you the persistent question, what if the real suspect slipped through these doors unobserved, unnoticed until now? Investigators still question whether any of these early suspects held the key or if the killer remains hidden in plain sight. Waiting for another night to return, you slip into a dimly lit back office at the police precinct, where a metal filing cabinet groans under the weight of manila envelopes. The room smells of musty paper and stale tobacco, punctuated by the sharp temps of fresh rain seeping through a cracked window. Beneath a flickering fluorescent bulb, you sort through stacks of correspondence addressed to the Black Dahlia Avenger. Each envelope bears postmarks from across California, an unsettling network of whispers stretched over cities and counties. The walls are lined with corkboards peppered with pinned letters, photographs, and cryptic sketches, evidence of a fascination that refuses to fade. Your gloved fingers tremble as you lift the first letter. It's typed on flimsy, off-white stationery, the name Black Dahlia Avenger underlined twice in heavy black ink. You unfold the sheet and inhale the faint scent of printer's ink mixed with the sour aroma of a hurried confession. The letter gushes with macabre pride. I carved her in half for the headlines, they deserved the spectacle. A stray drop of ink smudges under your thumb, as if the custodian of this chilling prose expected you. The jagged rhythms of the sentences send a cold draft through the room. You press the paper flat, dreading what comes next. In the mid-1930s, the FBI's Bureau of Investigation pioneered cryptanalysis techniques by decoding ciphers in the Lindbergh kidnapping ransom. Notes establishing letter analysis as a vital investigative tool. Yet here, 24 years later, detectives lack enough points of comparison to confirm authorship. Each new letter arrives with a flourish. Some are typewritten, others scrawled in looping cursive, and a few appear almost calligraphic, as though penned by someone trained in elegant script. You note the variety, wondering which might hide the genuine confession. A fringe rumor circulates. Among true crime enthusiasts, one particular letter was written on the reverse side of a 1946 Miss Los Angeles beauty pageant program, suggesting the writer attended that very event. You rifle through clues of sequined gowns and sash numbers, imagining the killer standing by the stage, grinning beneath harsh spotlights. The idea feels ludicrous and yet disturbingly plausible. The same person who could stalk a pageant backstage could also prowl shadowed streets for a darker prize. You spread several letters across a dusty table, reading them side by side. One boasts of insider knowledge. I placed her shoes 10 paces east of the body detectives. Will never guess why. Another threatens future violence. Next time, I'll French kiss their ribs. You shiver at the visceral humor, the gleeful cruelty behind each line. A typed footnote on one page claims the killer used surgical scissors, an echo of rumors that a local hospital lost a pair months earlier. You hesitate before touching that note, as if direct contact might draw you deeper into the killers. Mind, your eyes catch a peculiar pattern. Multiple letters contain the sequence 15 for 19, scribbled lightly in pencil at the bottom corner. You lean closer, tracing the tiny numerals. Could it be a date, a code, perhaps the killer's way of marking each missive with a hidden signature? Detectives dusted that corner for prints, only to find a single partial loop dismudged for comparison. You tap the sequence with your fingertip, marveling at how something so precise can slip through the cracks of forensic scrutiny. Investigators still question whether any of these letters came from the actual killer or from copycats seeking attention. Amid dozens of letters, only a handful contained verifiable facts known only to police, like the exact position of Elizabeth Short's head under the tarp. The rest could be idle fabrications, meant to stoke fear and feed headlines. You gather the letters into piles labeled confirmed, questionable, and hoax. Though the dividing lines blur under the flickering light, a sudden gust rattles the window pane, scattering papers across the floor. You crouch to retrieve a letter typed in green ink, an odd choice that reeks of theatricality. It describes a secret symbol supposedly left on Short's abdomen, a small chalk-drawn star nestled between jagged incision lines. No officer ever documented such a mark, yet the letter insists it was there, suggesting occult significance. You tuck it into a folder marked Fringe. Its claims to sensational even for cold-blooded reporters. You pause to catch your breath. Outside, thunder rumbles in the distance, a low drumbeat that matches the hammered clacks of your heart. A single sparrow rattles against the window, and you listen to its frantic flutter before returning your gaze to the letters. One ends with, "I promise, I'll write again when the snow falls." An ominous vow that seems out of place in mild Los Angeles winters. You glance at the calendar. It's July. The imagery feels poetic, disconnected from reality, entirely in tune with a killer's warped narrative. Beside you, an aging detective flips through a worn handbook on question document comparison. Its pages dog-eared at handwriting and typewriter font samples. He mutters about kerning and letter spacing, recalling a case where matching a typeface led to the arrest of a swindler. Here, he finds nothing conclusive, only tantalizing hints. A slight tilt on the E in Dahlia. A smudge after the word love. A faint watermark of a paper supplier long out of business. These broken threads dangle before you, begging to be woven into something coherent. You gather the most credible letters, those referencing details withheld from the public, and seal them in an evidence bag. The rubber strip of the seal clicks, a final barrier between curious eyes and malevolent secrets. As you rise, the lantern yellow glow overhead hums low, and you feel the room's weight pressing on your shoulders. The letters, once bold and brazen, now seem fragile insubstantial echoes of a gruesome act. Finally, you turn off the desk lamp and step into the hallway. The precinct feels unnaturally quiet, the teletype machines silenced, the echo of distant footsteps replaced by your own soft tap. You pause under a flickering corridor light, letting the hush wash over you before you carry the folders back to the crime board. Outside, rain begins to patter softly against the pavement. Each drop a muted punctuation in a story still unfinished. You push open the heavy oak door of homicide. Detail and feel the murmur of late-night traffic slip behind. You like a forgotten whisper. Your polished badger, small silver star, issued by Chief Parker himself, catches the harsh glow of the swinging overhead lamp. By 1947, the LAPD's homicide detail comprised roughly 20 detectives organized into squads, each assigned a handful of the city's most baffling murders. Tonight, you're in charge. Your desk, strewn with case files and yellowing news clippings, creaks beneath the weight of parceled evidence. A battered mug of cold coffee sits beside a half-smoked Chesterfield. You lift it to your lips and taste stale bitterness, your nightly ritual, and a reminder that sleep is optional in this game. A flicker of neon from the street lamp outside paints the blinds in purple stripes, like bruises against the dark. Somewhere in the precinct, a typewriter clicks in deliberate Morse. You lean back and open the manila folder marked short. E. Case number 47-128. The first page lists her name, age, and occupation, aspiring actress. Beneath it, a terse note, body bisected, no identifiable prints. You tap your fingernail against the paper, feeling its grainy texture. A mainstream method crime scene. Photography introduced to the LAPD in the early 1920s helped preserve this moment in stark black and white. Yet every photograph seems to withhold its center of truth. A soft cough draws your gaze to the pinboard. On the wall, here, colored cords link photographs of suspects, locations, and objects. The silver locket, the blood-stained tarp, the half-melted candle stub found near the fence. Fringe whisperers claim that candle was lit in a secret midnight gathering of occult adherents, an unverified tale that persists in the margins of this case. You trace the red string back to a grainy mugshot of Dr. Leslie Bailey, a local surgeon, whose office hours purportedly extended into the witching hour. The edges of the photo curl slightly, as if recoiling from the truth. You rise and pace the room's perimeter, fingers brushing against cold concrete walls. The scent of gun oil and ancient wood polish hangs in the air. In the corner, a small brass bell perches atop a filing cabinet. An old superstition suggests that ringing it wards off evil spirits. You once caught a sergeant secretly giving it to raps before entering the crime scene. You shrugged it off at the time, but the detail of ritual still lingers like a question mark. Back at your desk, you thumb through witness statements. One local drifter swears he saw a shadow man near the lot at dawn, his trench coat flapping like a dark flag. Another, a streetcar conductor, remembers nothing but the hollow clack of rails and the distant wail of sirens. A nationwide fact. By 1947, the FBI's investigative arm had begun training local law enforcement on standardized interview techniques. Yet, many detectives here still favored intuition over rigid scripts. You ponder whether your gut serves you better than forms. You close your eyes and replay. The scene in your mind's replay booth, the body under a burlap tarp, bisected in clinical precision. The officer's breath puffing in cold air. The hush, that pressed in like water. The memory tastes of engine grease and antiseptic, a bizarre cocktail you can never quite shake. You inhale slowly, letting the past settle before exhaling into the present. A knock at the door jolts you. Detective Reyes steps in, holding a manila envelope stamped lab results. You crack it open to find detailed blood groups reports. All samples confirm human origin, type O, but nothing more. You fold the papers neatly and tuck them into your pocket. Nothing new, you murmur. He shrugs. Still no DNA, just dust and doubt. You step to the desk lamp and adjust. Its shade casting a pool of light over a small black notebook. It contains your own scribble streamlines, street maps, even a crude horoscope chart you drew after reading a fringe newsletter that speculated astrological influences on violent behavior. You never admitted it, but you once considered whether Elizabeth's January 15th chart sun in Capricorn, moon in Scorpio might mean she was destined for a dramatic fate. Investigators still question whether such tangent theories distracted from solid leads. Glancing at the clock, bulky wall-mounted face with glowing numerals, you note it's 2:17 a.m. The city's sleep-drunk lullaby hums through the thin windows. You crack a window open and let in a brisk breeze, scented faintly of orange blossoms. Inhale deep, a breath of possibility, and a reminder that even in darkness, something grows. You return to the pinboard and tap the edge of Dr. Bailey's photo. Beneath it, you pin a new index card. Check clinic night logs. It's a mundane step but necessary if any records exist. A mainstream approach in complex cases, establishing victims and suspects' last movements through hospital logs and appointment books. You scratch a note. Ascertain Dr. B's midnight schedule. Your phone buzzes a call sheet for 3 a.m. interview with a harbor watchman. You slide the receiver into place, voice clipped, detective on the line. After a moment, you scribble heard shouting near docks 0114, no sighting of ES. In your notebook, you lean back, savoring the scratch of pen on paper, fleeting taste of control. Walking to the evidence locker, you pause by a steel cart holding the crime scene tarp. It's suspended to dry, its fibers stiff with old blood. You run a gloved finger over the coarse weave, feeling micro-abrasions that almost whisper secrets. A fringe rumor once claimed the tarp's pattern matched fabric sold at a Hollywood prop house an enticing but unverified lead. You shake your head, reminding yourself that only documented provenance counts. In the locker's hush, you retrieve the small glass vial marked skin scrapings. Under a single bulb, it gleams like a captured tear. You cradle it gingerly, remembering that forensic trace evidence fibers. Skin cells wouldn't see reliable microscopic analysis until years later. For now, it sits as silent witness to the world's limits. You replace it and turn off the light. Back in your office, you sit heavily and stretch your legs under the desk. The hum of the city rises like a tide. You stare at the map of West Adams. Green pushpins marking witness statements, blue for suspects, red for crime scene evidence. It looks more like abstract art than an investigation chart. And yet you know each pin represents a human life intruded upon by violence. You close your eyes for a breath, centering yourself. You imagine Elizabeth Short walking these streets, her dreams painted in technicolor ambition, unaware of the darkness gathering at her heels. You wonder, was it jealousy, vengeance, or something stranger that cut her life in two? Investigators still question whether motive lies in personal rage or some ritualistic impulse, whether the dark lady persona she cultivated attracted a predator who saw art in violence. A final pause. You lift your hand to the bell on your desk and give it a single, decisive ring. The sound echoes through the precincter call to action. Tomorrow, you'll follow the clinic logs, re-interview the harbor watchman, and cross-check every rumor against hard facts. You'll sift through the noise until only truth remains. For now, though you gather your coat, tuck away your notebook, and step into the hallway, the precinct's lights dim behind you as you head into the neon-lit night. You carry the cases, weight in your pocket and resolve in your heart. The search for the man who carved Elizabeth Short's life in half continues. One dog-tired step at a time, you slip into a shadowed alley behind a swanky Sunset Strip nightclub, the neon glow, bleeding through slatted blinds and casting skeletal patterns on damp brick. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and the distant thrum of jazz piano, each note vibrating low in your chest. By the mid-1940s, Los Angeles hosted dozens of clandestine, spiritualist gatherings, seances held in penthouses where wealthy patrons dabbled in mysticism and the macabre. Tonight, you're chasing a whisper that Elizabeth Short once slipped into one such salon, drawn by the promise of communing with otherworldly guides. Your heels click against the pavement as you peer through dusty glass. Inside, a circle of well-dressed socialites and bohemians sits around a low walnut table, its surface littered with tarot cards and half-burned candles. Plush drapes absorbed murmurings and muffled laughter, turning every sound into a soft sigh. A medium in a sequined gown channels voices from beyond, her pale eyes glazed as she intones. The dark lady's fate was sealed by someone she trusted. A chill ripples through the room, and you shiver, tasting the tang of melting wax on your tongue. A mainstream fact grounds you. Spiritualism in post-war America surged as people sought comfort after unprecedented global trauma, and detectives, sometimes interviewed mediums for lead savon, though courts rarely admitted their testimonies as evidence. Yet here, in this hushed parlor, the line between fact and fantasy blurs. A fringe tipster once claimed that in this very room, Short revealed a hidden Dahlia sigil tattooed on her ribcage, an intimate secret she hoped only spirit world confidants would witness. You strain to see past the glare of lamplight, but the crowd's bodies form an opaque barrier, stepping back into the alley's damp air. You run your fingers along a moss-spotted drainpipe. Rain from earlier has pooled in uneven patches, reflecting the flicker of neon. A cab door slams nearby, and you catch the faint hiss of hydraulic brakes. The world outside seems indifferent to the enigma unfolding here, yet rumor insists that Hollywood's elite screenwriters and stuntmen alike sought out Short's company, enticed by her quiet glamour and whispered occult leanings. Some fringe theorists suggest she traded insider gossip for invitations to private film studio seances, hoping a spirit guide might secure her a screen test. You inhale deeply, letting the electric buzz of nightclub traffic mingle with your own pulse. A flash of memory flickers, vultures circling a carcass, a dahlia blossom petals spread at a ritual altar. You blink, dislodging the vision. Investigators still question whether any of these occult whispers stemmed from genuine clues, or from fanciful hoaxes planted to derail the inquiry. That uncertainty coils around you like wet rope. Following the murmur of voices, you skirt down another narrow passage and emerge near a deserted soundstage. The boards creak underfoot, and you sense the echo of long-ago film crews packing up for the night. A battered director's chair leans against a wall, its canvas torn but still bearing a faded name, W. Royce, Doc Bailey. A shadowy rumor persists that Dr. Bailey, a respected surgeon, once performed private midnight autopsies here under the glare of arc lights, testing his skills on cadavers provided by underworld contacts. Some say Short volunteered as an assistant, hoping to glean insider knowledge. You crouch beside a coil of electrical cable and listen. The faint drip of water echoes like a ticking clock, marking time you can't reclaim. A single rusted nail juts from a board, and you press your fingertip to it, feeling the cold metal press into skin. In the hush that follows, you almost believe the soundstage is alive with memory's footsteps of extras, the snap of a boom mic, a scream frozen mid-take. In that instant, the idea that a killer might stage part of his crime as a twisted cinematic tableau feels eerie yet plausible. Rising, you brush sawdust from your coat. Your heart pounds a steady rhythm, matching the distant bass line of a nightclub saxophone. The smell of damp wood and hot oil from adjacent backlot generators clings to your clothes. You close your eyes, trying to unspool the tangle of rumor. From reality, a faint whisper tickles your ear. Beware the mask, and you turn, but nobody stands there. A mainstream touchstone cuts through the haze. In 1947, Hollywood studios maintained private security forces that often traded favors and information with local police, giving them informal influence over investigations lodged on studio property. That tangled web of alliances sometimes shielded suspects with star connections, muddying jurisdictional lines. Fringe enthusiasts argue that an unnamed studio guard saw a slender figure dragging a burlap sack from the lot and that he was promptly whisked away, his name scrubbed from official logs. Investigators still question whether studio interference hampered early inquiries, and if vital eyewitness accounts were willfully buried. You exhale slowly, letting the night's clamor recede. Into the distance, A breeze stirs loose feathers from a nearby costume rack, and you watch them float like dying petals in slow motion. Your pulse slows as you savor the brief reprieve, the city's roar reduced to a distant hum, your thoughts melding with the rhythm of nighttime Los Angeles. Gathering yourself, you step away from the soundstage and onto an empty backlot avenue, the painted facades of mock storefronts looming like silent sentinels. A single street lamp flickers overhead, its bulb sputtering, against a backdrop of indigo sky. You trace the silhouettes of palm trees etched against the concrete horizon, their fronds whispering secrets in the wind. A final fringe whisper drifts across your mind that Elizabeth Short once confided in a Hollywood astrologer, who warned her of a split destiny under the January 15th sky. The astrologer allegedly recorded the reading on letterhead, later found in her suitcase, hidden beneath layers of newspaper clippings. No official record confirms its existence, yet the notion clutches at you with uneasy fascination. You pause. Beneath that sputtering lamp, every sound magnified in the hush, the distant siren call of a police cruiser, the soft thud of a stray cat jumping a fence, the muted hum of an idling studio generator. In that quiet, you sense the fragile boundary between myth and method, the way every rumor can warp truth into legend. Then you step into the glow of a passing patrol car's headlights, the beam catching dust motes dancing in the air. Your shadow stretches behind you, elongated and distorted. You draw a deep breath, tasting the metallic temps of anticipation, and press onward where that tomorrow may bring hard forensic breakthroughs or only more whispers in the dark. Are you ready to chase them? You settle at a narrow desk under the same flickering bare bulb that casts shadows over every other mundane detail in this investigation. A single manila envelope sprawls before you, its flap crudely sealed with yellowing adhesive tape. Inside lies the Black Dahlia Avenger Manifesto, a 2-page screed, typed on cheap onion skin paper, sent directly to the Los Angeles Daily Mirror with no return address. You peel it open and inhale the faint tang of aged paper and discarded cigarette smoke, a sensory anchor that pulls you closer to the killer's mind. The letter begins with a flourish of grandiose flourish. Behold, the masterpiece of a surgeon's blade. It declares, its capital letters underlined with ferrule precision. You trace each word with slow deliberation, tasting the sharp cadence of its sentences. By 1947, law enforcement had seen scripted confessions before ransom notes in the Lindbergh. Kidnapping taught the FBI the value of forensic linguistics, but few compared to the brazen theatricality of this missive. You marvel at the killer's confidence in knowing newspaper deadlines would guarantee his words spread like wildfire. You lean closer, the paper crackling beneath your fingertips. The manifesto references specific details withheld from the press, the exact distance between Short's wrists and the rasp of her scarf against concrete. That insider knowledge lends an unsettling mainstream weight to the confession, suggesting the writer stood at the scene long enough to catalogue minutiae the public never learned. Investigators still question whether these precise flourishes confirm authenticity or simply reveal inside access to police reports leaked by overzealous deputies. A stray breeze ruffles the edges of the desk blotter, and you pause to steady your breath. A fringe whisper persists in true crime circles. Some say the manifesto's type was produced by the same Underwood model found in Dr. Bailey's office, implying he repurposed his surgical paperwork to compose a grotesque public performance. You glance to the side, picturing the good doctor at midnight, scalpel in one hand and typewriter keys in the other. The image feels absurd and chilling, like a noir film dissolving into reality. You push back your chair and rise, pacing the narrow confines of the evidence room. The manifesto's rhetoric echoes in your mind. I dissected her innocence like a cadaver's rib. It boasts, the words bold and visceral. In post-war American crime journalism, such evocative language was rare. Reporters favored sober, clipped prose, but here the killer crafts his own headline. You imagine newsboys selling extra papers, just to hawk the manifesto's lurid copy. Your steps slow as you recall a mainstream development. The American Press Institute's 1947 guidelines urged journalists to verify such letters before publication, cautioning against hysteria. Yet the Mirror ran the Avengers' words in full, trading caution for sensational sales. You nearly taste the metallic temps of ink bleeding into your mouth at that realization. A momentary pause offers a gentle reprieve from the manifesto's brazen cruelty. Back at the desk, you study the letter's physical traits. The paper's watermark indicates it was sold only in offices near downtown LA, and the ribbons. Uneven inking suggests a portable carriage, perhaps used in illicit back-alley typing. You run a fingertip along a smudge at the bottom, half expecting blood, but find only graphite from a penciled notation, verified dimensions. A junior clerk penciled it after the manifesto's arrival, but the killer's original punctuation remains crisp. The manifesto's structure intrigues you. It's divided into staccato paragraphs, each introduced by a Roman numeral and affectation reminiscent of academic theses rather than violent confession. You picture the killer drafting and redrafting, obsessing over the perfect layout. Among true crime aficionados, a quirky rumor persists that the Avenger used archaic Latin phrases lifted from medieval surgical texts, weaving elegiac couplets into his threats. You scan for them, spotting an odd phrase, cadaverem in nocti, but you hesitate to confirm if it's original or a clerk's misread typeface. A deep exhale frees the tension in your chest. You flip the manifesto and discover a small slip of yellow paper sandwiched between the pages, a childlike drawing of a dahlia blossom, its petals stained with what looks like coffee. Fringe experts insist this doodle indicates a disturbed, youthful psyche, but you wonder if it's just a hoaxer's flourish, meant to toy with both detectives and amateur sleuths alike. You lean over the letter one last time, noting its chilling final line, "Justice is mine to carve." The words linger like a whispered dare. You fold the pages closed, aligning their edges with ritual precision, and slide them into a clean evidence bag whose plastic crackles in protest. The manifesto's tactile weight feels heavier now, as though its violence has seeped into the fibers of the room itself. Stepping away, you feel the gravity of the confession settle on your shoulders. The hallway lights beyond the door glow a harsh white, incongruous with the manifesto's dark flourish. You pinch the bridge of your nose, tasting the stale coffee from an hours-old cup on the desk. Another brief breath, another breather sentence. You close your eyes for a moment and let the silence wash over you, remembering that every violent boast must be weighed against tangible proof. You return the sealed bag to the evidence rack and double-check its tag. Then you cross to a corkboard where you pin a new index card beneath the manifesto's clipping in yesterday's paper. Compare paper stock, ribbon type. It's a mundane action, but essential. The line between authentic and hoax often lies in minute details. You shine a penlight over the pinned card, imagining yourself as a spider mapping the web of a killer's mind. A soft click signals the evidence. Rooms, door locking behind you. The corridor feels quieter now, every footstep echoing like a timekeeper. You draw in a deep breath, scented with floor wax and fluorescent hum. Behind you, the manifesto remains behind glass, its printed threat frozen in perpetuity. Before you, leave. You pause at a vacant desk, cluttered with reporter mock-ups and coffee rings. You pick up a discarded draft of tomorrow's headline, Avenger's Voice, a twisted psalm, and flip it over, half expecting to find another clue scrawled in the margins. Instead, there's only a single word penciled, skeptic. You tuck the slip into your notebook, a reminder that every sensational claim demands measured doubt. You step into the hallway, carrying the echo of that defiant phrase, "Justice is mine to carve," like a silent drumbeat. Ahead, the neon exit sign flickers, casting green light onto chipped tile. You adjust your tie and set your jaw, readying yourself for the next interrogation or forensic test. Whether the manifesto rings true or simply rings hollow, you know your work continues, unraveling every boast, every smudge, every flourish, until the real voice behind the Avenger speaks through cold, hard evidence. You push open the heavy walnut door of Dr. Leslie Bailey's private office and step into a hush that smells of formaldehyde and old leather. The walls are lined with glass-capped shelves holding amber jars labeled in neat script nerves. Muscle tissue, half-fused bone, fragments. A brass plaque above the door proclaims Leslie Bailey, MD surgeon, and you notice the faint tick of a porcelain dial clock, its hands inching toward midnight. In the 1940s, Lister's antiseptic techniques introduced in the late 1880s had become standard in every surgical theater, meaning sterile gloves and carbolic acid sprays were routine before each incision. Yet here, in this private suite, something feels off. Your fingertips trail along a glass-encased lithograph of an anatomical drawing, a perfect cross-section of the human abdomen, inked in delicate lines. A mainstream fact glimmers behind, the fringe mystique. By 1947, forensic pathologists had begun using histological slides to confirm wound patterns and estimate wound-inflicted force, refining homicide investigations across America. Still, Dr. Bailey's jars seem more like curiosities than evidence like trophies from an academic expedition into human flesh. A low lamp casts long shadows across a mahogany desk strewn with papers, surgical logs, patient charts, and a small stack of personal stationery embossed with a monogram LB. You lift the top sheet and inhale its faint scent of lavender polish. It's a letter from a medical supply house, confirming Bailey's order of surgical scalpels, 5 numbered sets, dated 2 days before, January 15th. Investigators still question whether those scalpels ever made it to the hospital or disappeared into darker hands. You lean in closer, noting a curious annotation in the margins, a tiny Dahlia sketch beside Bailey's signature. Fringe rumors claim he once carved that same Dahlia motif into the handle of his favorite scalpel, calling it a dark reminder of beauty and death. No colleague ever admits to seeing the carving, and no instrument ever returned to the supply. Room shows the mark. You trace the penciled petals, half expecting to feel an imprint beneath the slick surface of the paper. The soft click of a drawer opening startles you. Inside lies an array of appointment ledgers, each page filled with neat entries, patient initials, dates, procedures. You flip to January 14th and find a brief notation. ES, 11 p.m., consult. Elizabeth Short's initials blink at you. From the ledger, as precise as a crime scene marker. A breath catches in your throat. A breather moment offers a calm before the plunge. You close your eyes for a heartbeat. Below that entry, another name appears. J.H. logged at 11:30 p.m. Could that be another patient, or the initials of a shadowy accomplice? You scan earlier months and find no other ES entries, leaving you to wonder if Short ever really showed up, or if someone fabricated her name under cover of night. Investigators still question whether these late-hour consultations were legitimate or a clever ruse to muddy paper trails. You slide the ledger back, and your gaze falls on a tall, cylindrical jar containing what looks like a severed fingertip. Preserved in formalin, the label reads, Case 47-128, Specimen C. Your pulse hammers as you recall that 47-128 was Elizabeth Short's homicide file number. A normal forensic lab would never release primary evidence to a private office, yet here it sits, suspended in yellowed fluid. A fringe supposition whispers that Bailey obtained secret access to police evidence. Swapping hospital cadavers for Dahlia remains in the dark of night. The lamp's glow flickers, and you hear the soft hiss of steam from an old radiator. You step toward a leather examination chair, its arms scuffed and stained. On its seat lies a single surgical glove, its fingers neatly splayed as though waiting for a hand. The latex has yellowed with age, and a rust-colored smear stains the palm. You lift it gingerly, the rubber tacky against your gloved fingertip. Was this the glove Bailey wore during those supposed midnight dissections? Or did he simply leave behind an artifact of routine office work? A censorship-style plaque on the wall catches your eye. No visitors after 10 p.m. It's stamped with the hospital seal, yet this is a private suite, not hospital grounds. You press your palm to the plaque's cool metal and read the fine print. Access restricted to staff with level 5 clearance. Rumor holds that Bailey held that clearance through political connections, granting him after-hours liberty denied to his peers. Investigators still question whether his official status gave him cover to shuttle evidence, or victims in and out of secure wings. You step back and notice an old projector perched on a corner table. Its reel labeled Florida State Surgical. Conference, 1946. A flicker of whimsy teases your mind. Did Bailey screen slides of his own incisions for a traveling audience of surgeons? Fringe tales say he once demonstrated the bisected Dahlia body under that projector, claiming it as a textbook lesson in anatomy. No conference minutes confirm such a presentation, though some attendees reported an unsigned case study circulated afterward, its illustrations too accurate to dismiss. Your breath comes in shallow bursts as you survey the room's final drawer, half open on squeaky hinges. Inside, you discover a weathered journal bound in black leather. You slide it out and flip through pages of spidery handwriting. Among patient notes, you find a poem addressed to my dark rose, describing midnight. Petals caressed by steel. It reads more like a love letter than medical observations. A second notch on the back cover bears the faint impression of the same Dahlia sketch you saw earlier. Your stomach twists. A mainstream touchstone grounds you in high-profile cases. Of the era, forensic pathologists routinely subpoenaed medical records and personal writings to tie suspects to victims. Think of Dr. Hawley Harvey. Crippen's unsealed journals in the early 1910s, yet no coroner's subpoena ever reaches Bailey's office. You wonder if that omission was deliberate, shielding him behind professional privilege. Investigators still question whether that privilege evolved into a cloak for darker impulses. You close the journal with a deliberate snap and slip it into an evidence bag, sealing the Dahlia imprinted notch from further exposure. The lamp's glow softens as its bulb flickers low. You pause in the doorway, letting the hush of formalin and fading light settle on your shoulders like a stifling cloak. Outside, the hospital corridor hums with the distant shuffle of night shift nurses. Life continues beyond these walls, the pulse of routine undisturbed by the secrets you've uncovered. You exhale one last time, tasting the metallic echo of adrenaline. Tomorrow, you'll compare typeface samples from Bailey's stationery to the Avenger manifesto, trace the scalpel serial numbers, and cross-check that single late-night ES entry against phone logs. Whether Dr. Bailey was a compassionate healer or a macabre collector, you know the answers lie buried in these jars and pages. Investigators still question whether the good doctor's midnight office visits were the turning point of the Black Dahlia case, or merely the most beguiling distraction of all. You step into the hushed back room of a dimly lit bookstore, where the scent of old paper and polished oak mingles like incense in a forgotten chapel. A single bulb flickers above a folding table piled high with yellowed paperbacks and glossy dust jackets. Tonight, you're here to examine Steve Hodal's 2003 memoir, Black Dahlia Avenger, a book that reignited public obsession by naming his own father Dr. Georgi Hodal Sr. as the killer. In 2003, memoir-based cold case theories accounted for fewer than 5% of renewed homicide inquiries, making Hodal's work both groundbreaking and controversial. You run your fingertips over the book's cover, feeling the slight indentation of the title's embossed letters. Inside, Hodal lays out 45 alleged confessions gleaned from police interviews he uncovered in old archives. A mainstream fact, cold case units nationwide began using family-sourced archival materials as leads only after the late 1990s. Following advances in digital record-keeping that made decade-old interviews accessible for the first time. Yet you sense the weight of one man's devotion, his determination to link father and victim intertwined with every page. Flipping to chapter 3, you inhale the dusty tang of library-worn paper. Hodal describes discovering a blood-stained cable car token in his family home, claiming it matched tokens found near the crime scene. A fringe rumor suggests that the token was actually part of a mismatched police exhibit, mislabeled during evidence intake, an error only Hodal's obsessive scrutiny could spot. You pause, tasting the metallic promise of revelation on your tongue, and wonder if the token's provenance is fact or fancy. You close your eyes for a slow breath, letting the memory of a thunderstorm rolling over Hollywood Hills wash through you. The memoir spills intimate details, Dr. Hodal's midnight medical consultations, odd nocturnal absences, and a shadowy journal filled with devotional sketches of dahlia petals. A quirky detail, true crime scholar Martin Kemp notes that at least one diary entry uses a peculiar phrase, "The flesh submits to a surgeon's art," mirroring language in the Avenger manifesto. That echo tingles down your spine. You lean forward, tracing the margin where Hodal wrote, "My father never lied to me." The words feel both tender and terrible, like a confession more than an accusation. Investigators still question whether familial bias tainted the narrative, given that no independent witness ever saw the younger Hodal handling original crime scene reports. You run a fingertip along the line, half expecting to feel the rough edge of truth. A rain-spattered window rattles beside you, reminding you of the night short's body was found in the lot, shards of glass crunching underfoot. You turn back to a chapter recounting how Hodal compared his father's handwriting to the Black Dahlia Avenger letters. A mainstream technique graphology had fallen out of favor by the 1940s, criticized for its lack of scientific rigor. Yet Hodel resurrects it here, presenting side-by-side samples and declaring a match. You swallow, tasting the bitter residue of doubt. Beneath the table's lamp, you notice an inserted newspaper clipping, illustrating police reopening the case in 2004. Officers are quoted expressing cautious interest in Hodel's findings, acknowledging that advanced forensic genealogy, absent from the original investigation, might one day validate or refute his claims. That glimmer of official intrigue lends credibility. Yet the clip's edges curl with age, as if retreating from certainty. You flip ahead to the book's final chapters, where Hodel constructs a psychological profile of his father, charming, erudite, and dangerously charismatic. A fringe contention holds that Dr. Hodel conducted clandestine autopsies on his own patients to perfect his knife skills, an allegation based on a single, unverified testimonial from a nurse who left no official record. You press your palm to your forehead, feeling the slow pulse of skepticism. A thump of thunder punctuates your thoughts. You lean back against a leather armchair, its arms worn smooth by decades of readers. The memoir's footnotes reveal Hodel's sources: decades-old police logs, the county assessor's records, and personal interviews with surviving relatives. A mainstream principle of historiography demands multiple independent sources. Hodel often relies on his father's statements and his own interpretive leaps. Investigators still question whether that duality creates more distortion than insight. You stand and pace the narrow space between shelves, the memoir tucked under one arm. The bookstore's hardwood floors creak beneath your steps, each pulse of sound a reminder of time's passage. You touch a nearby Spinjone Didion's essays on California crime and imagine the literary weight of witness versus memoir. The edges blur here. Memory's fragility meets the brutality of unsolved murder. A clerk emerges with a steaming cup of chamomile tea, its herbal steam curling like the swirling dust motes in your wake. You cradle the warm cup and let its gentle aroma soothes your frayed nerves. A brief pause comes unbidden, giving your mind room to sort truth from speculation. You sip, tasting the honeyed calm. Returning to the table, you skim Hodel's appendix, where he catalogues 98 alleged connections between his father and known crime scenes. It reads like a frenzied map of suspicion, each dot a potential waypoint for the killer. A mainstream standard in cold case reviews, investigators look for patterns of behavior, but rarely does one suspect's alleged trail span multiple decades and cities. Yet Hodel stitches it together here with fervent conviction. You close the book and place it softly on the table. The leather cover's familiar heft feels like both a weapon and a shield. Outside, the rain taps against the bookstores. Front window, a metronome counting down your resolve. You inhale deeply, tasting the mingled tannins of tea and ink. Your final glance lands on a small publisher's note. This edition includes updated commentary from 2018, following new genealogical DNA advances. A mainstream development. Genetic genealogy has solved dozens of cold cases since the early 2010s. Yet no Dahlia DNA profile exists to test against public databases. That scientific void echoes through the memoir's pages like a silent scream. You stand, the chair's leather sighing behind you. The memoir remains open, a gauntlet thrown in the dim light. You tuck it under your arm, feeling the weight of its bold assertions and whispered uncertainties. Investigators still question whether the son's zealotry crafted conviction or collusion with myth. Leaving the back room, you step into the bookstore's bright front, where new print editions gleam under spotlights. You pause beneath the sign, reading local authors, letting the glare of fluorescent bulbs wash over you. The world outside pulses with life-mourning commuters, neon cafe signs, the distant roar of LA freeways. You inhale one last breath of chamomile-scented air, steeling yourself for what comes next, cross-checking every claim, every margin note, every handwritten flourish against cold, unyielding evidence. The memoir's resonance lingers, a haunting echo of a father's possible sins and a son's relentless quest for answers, and you carry forward knowing that myth and memory dance on a razor's edge, waiting for truth. To slice through the shadows, you lean forward in your dimly lit study, the glow of a laptop screen painting your face in phosphorescent blues. The year is now 2025, and the Black Dahlia case, cold for nearly 8 decades, has seen a renaissance under fingers that type rather than scalpels that cut. Online forums hum with activity as amateur sleuths pore over thousands of scanned police documents, fiber diagrams, and crime scene photos. Forensic genetic genealogy, a mainstream innovation that helped crack the Golden State Killer case in 2018 by triangulating distant relatives' DNA profiles to zero in on a suspect, has become a cornerstone of modern cold case work. You navigate to GetMatch, logging credentials as if pacing through a digital mausoleum, and upload whatever trace DNA remains from Elizabeth Short's preserved scrapings. A rush of anticipation thrums through you as algorithmic trees branch across the screen, each node representing a potential cousin several times removed. Public DNA repositories have democratized access to genealogical data once exclusive to law enforcement labs, giving everyday citizens the power to connect genetic dots. Yet engaging with these platforms also raises privacy concerns and legal puzzles. You hover over a promising fourth cousin match, your pulse quickening, and sip cool water to steady the swirl of possibilities. On a separate tab, a fringe community on a subreddit named r. Dahlia Mysteries buzzes with theories. An anonymous user claims to have decoded hidden metadata embedded in high-resolution scans of the crime scene photos, alleging it maps a breadcrumb path to a long-abandoned Glendale warehouse. Investigators still question whether sleuth-generated leads reflect genuine clues or mere apophenia, trick of the human mind spotting patterns where none exist. You click through dozens of threads where theories range from plausible to fantastical. Google Earth overlays suggesting tire tracks, whispers of concealed initials etched into a brick, facade by a goose quill brush. An email from a genetics lab in Tennessee pulls you back. They've completed mitochondrial DNA sequencing on hair fragments recovered beneath Short's fingernails, an advancement unimaginable in 1947's world of blood group serology. Modern haplogroup analysis can place maternal lineage across continents, revealing ancestral migrations with astounding precision. The report arrives as a neatly formatted PDF, each chart and base pair alignment a testament to decades of molecular biology progress. You download it and open to find haplogroup H1A, most common in Northern Europe and parts of the British Isles. Switching gears, you join a live-streamed 24-hour cold case watch webinar. Forensic experts lecture on the emergence of touch DNA and chemical profiling, demonstrating how lipid residue analysis can suggest a suspect's recent contact with petroleum products like those that coated the tarpaulin found at the original West Adams lot. The chat scrolls rapidly. Dr. Lin, can we apply lipidomics to Dahlia's glove fragments? What about AI-enhanced teletype transcript restoration? These questions hang in the air like ghostly echoes, each one a promise of potential. Breakthrough, a discreet ping draws you to another window. A private investigator has located a subscriber list from a defunct 1946 Hollywood occult magazine. Page after yellowed page, names and addresses, emerge dozens of potential leads. A coded entry beside one name reads ES board tattoo. Could this be the origin of the Dahlia sigil tales? You bookmark the PDF, planning to cross-reference it against beauty pageant registration logs from the era. You lean back, closing your eyes for a heartbeat. The hum of your computer's fans whispers secrets you almost catch but never fully hear. This moment of quiet offers a breather, a reminder that behind every digital clue lies a human tragedy. You inhale deeply, letting the cool air steady your resolve. Returning to the task, you reopen the genealogical tree. Branches narrow, clusters shrink, until you identify two second cousins sharing significant centimorgan overlap. Neither appears in public databases, but a cooperating service in Europe contacts you. They hold raw autosomal data for a user whose profile matches those clusters, one of whom lives quietly in Orange County. The convergence feels electrifying, a mainstream detective tactic born of prisoner's dilemma theory and cutting-edge DNA research. You jot down names, drafting a permission request in your notebook. A kitchen timer on your desk ticks softly. You glance at it and smile, small comfort in the chaos of virtual sleuthing. It pinged 30 minutes ago to remind you to review digital preservation ethics. You scribble a sticky note, seal timestamps, chain of custody. Another reads, obtain warrants for private database logs. These procedural breadcrumbs chart a path between privacy and justice. Next, you pull up a 4000 enhanced crime scene photo alongside a 1947 snapshot of the West Adams lot. The AI upscaled version sharpens crumbling brick edges and accentuates a subtle carved groove near the fence post overlooked in the original investigation. Fringe proponents hail this as validation of occult narratives, claiming the groove aligns with a druidic symbol. Investigators still question whether such AI-induced artifacts can be trusted as evidence instead of misleading illusions. You pause and run your fingers through your hair, tasting the faint metallic temps of adrenaline. You think back to server logs humming in a cold data vault, routers blinking like heartbeat monitors. Every digital echo you trace adds another layer to a mosaic woven from code and memory. And yet the core remains the same. A life stolen, a mystery unsolved, waiting for the slender thread that will finally unravel the killer's identity. You lean forward again, ready to draft an affidavit request to compel cooperation from a service, to access restricted archives, to subpoena server logs. You feel the weight of history and technology coalesce at your fingertips. A final breath expands your chest. This blend of modern science and digital detective work, born from a mainstream fascination with truth and fringe hunger for revelation, propels you toward a new horizon. But as the murk of uncertainty settles back in, you remind yourself, every breakthrough must withstand scrutiny, every clue vetted against the cold, impartial mirror of evidence. You find yourself drawn back to West Adams' lot as dusk settles. The concrete crimson under the dying light, each crack whispering of memories too stubborn to fade. You trace your fingers along the fence post's rough wood, tasting the faint tang of rust carried on the breeze. By 1950, the FBI had officially entered the investigation. designating the Black Dahlia case as one of its first unsolved homicides in the newly expanded Los Angeles Field Division, forever engraving it in the annals of American crime law. Yet, its resolution remains as elusive as the long shadows now stretching across the lot. Investigators still question whether any evidence collected here could withstand modern scrutiny, or if the passage of decades has allowed vital clues to slip through the cracks, drawing a hesitant breath. You recall how the morning sun once burned away dew and revealed the bisected body, turning this open space into a grotesque stage where life and death performed a silent duet. You imagine Elizabeth's missing silver locket, a fringe rumor insisting it now lies buried beneath layers of sediment, waiting for some intrepid relic hunter to unearth it. That tiny keepsake, absent from police records, functions as a morbid talisman among true crime devotees, fueling whispered speculation that a secret admirer stole it as a final, personal trophy. The city has changed around you, yet the lot remains suspended between past and present. Neon signs from modern diners strobe at its edge, but here the energy is static, heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. You lean against a cracked utility polio, leather glove brushing. Rough woodened, close your eyes to hear the ghostly echo of footsteps approaching under a moonlit sky. Some fringe enthusiasts claim they've recorded electronic voice phenomena VP, capturing faint murmurs that echo find him in the lot's emptiness. Investigators still question whether such spectral evidence can ever be more than the mind's projection, or if it hints at a truth that eludes physical evidence. You step to the perimeter where fans once left flowers, candles, and hand-scrawled signs reading "Never Forgotten." The makeshift memorial now gone, its fragments live on in photographs that circulate online. A mainstream fact resonates. The Black Dahlia case has inspired more books, documentaries, and academic papers than any other unsolved homicide in Los Angeles history, underscoring its enduring grip on the collective imagination. Yet the narrative remains incomplete, a mosaic of fact and fantasy waiting for the final piece. For the 60th anniversary in 2007, vigilantes secretly placed a small brass plaque at the site, inscribed simply with Elizabeth's name and date. It was swept away by property managers within days, a testament to the tension between remembrance and erasure. In subsequent years, followers leave single red roses at the fence, whispering prayers that her soul might finally rest. Today, West Adams Boulevard hosts guided crime scene tours and late-night ghost walks. Mainstream tours operators treat homicide history as a form of dark tourism, offering microphone-equipped headsets that recount facts while neon signs flicker overhead. Fringe ghost tours narratives promise glimpses of a pale figure, wandering the lot, a shape slipping between reality and imagination. Investigators still question whether such dramatized visits honor her memory or cheapen her humanity. As darkness deepens, you move toward the center of the lot, where once her body lay halved with surgical precision. The ground now hosts stray blades of grass, stubborn emerald strands marking the spot where beauty met brutality. You kneel, brushing a fingertip over the earth, and feel the pull of every narrative thread that touched this place. Academic theses, impulse-driven online forums, occult enthusiasts, mapping esoteric symbols on the pavement. Each left its imprint. Like a ghost train rumbling along a forgotten track, the wind rises, carrying the scent of orange blossoms from adjacent gardens and the faint tints of gasoline from a passing bus. You lift your gaze to the horizon, where a single star stands defiantly against the deepening night. Here, the lot is a mirror for every kind of longing justice, closure, a story that honors a life cut tragically short. Maybe that is why the mystery endures, because it holds up all of our hopes and fears. Leaving no tidy answer, you stand and breathe deeply, letting the cool air coax tension from your chest. You picture Elizabeth walking these streets in life, her footsteps light with hope, unaware that destiny would carve her story into infamy. You sense the thin line between witness and participant blurring as you carry the weight of every whispered theory and documented fact. Investigators still question whether the man behind the blade felt remorse, or if he vanished into night believing his cruel tableau perfected his dark art. A sudden rustle at the lot's boundary jolts you. A stray cat darts through broken boards, vanishing into shadows. You exhale, letting the animals retreat remind you of fate's unpredictability. You rise and walk away, footsteps soft on cracked concrete, the lot's silence pressing against your back like a living thing. Neon and street lamps flicker around you, the city humming along, indifferent yet vigilant. Before you slip into the bustle of modern Los Angeles, you glance back one last time at the lot's perimeter. Its outline, jagged and scarred, seems no less vivid in darkness than in sunlight. The case's legacy pulses here, in every cracked street lamp and whispered retelling, a testament to story's power to transcend time. And as you step beyond the fence and into the ordinary glow of streetlights, the question hangs in the still air. Will justice one day illuminate these shadows, or will the Dark Lady's secret remain forever beyond our reach? In the quiet afterglow of this long and winding journey, you find yourself floating in a stillness both comforting and haunting. Each breath expands slowly, carrying away the weight of dark discoveries until only the soft echo of memory remains. The rhythms of the city fade, leaving a gentle silence that wraps around you like a warm blanket. Allow yourself to rest for a moment here, in this liminal space between fact and legend, letting your mind wander through the tapestry of narratives that have emerged. Each one is a thread in a tapestry too vast to contain, yet woven with care by every person who has dared to look closer. In this shared remembrance, Elizabeth's short story becomes more than tragedy, becomes a subtle invocation of empathy. As your heartbeat slows to a steady cadence, you feel a gentle assurance that the search will continue, guided by respect and truth. Though dark corners may forever resist illumination, your resolve remains unwavering. In the hush of twilight, you can almost hear the flutter of petals carried on a distant wind, soft and insistent. Now, as your senses soften and the world begins to recede, allow yourself to drift toward quietude. The night's embrace is gentle, its hush inviting you to release every lingering question and simply be. Sleep may come slowly, but rest assured you are not alone in the vigil. Listen for the soft hum of distant traffic and the faint sigh of breath in an empty room. May you carry compassion and curiosity into every new dawn gently. And with that, I'll whisper one final thought. In remembering her story, you honor a life that deserves to be seen and never forgotten. Sleep well, dear listener, and let these reflections guide your dreams in the gentlest of whispers. Sweet dreams.